I have with me Clifford Myers, and I'm looking forward to our chat. Clifford is a comedian, and amongst other things, I know you also worked in the tech world. So you got laid off in 2022 from Shopify, started your own business apparently 1 minute after, and that business
Less
is
than.
called less than a minute after. Okay, well,
Yeah.
you really had a lot of initiative there, and it's called the other comedy company. So I'd love to hear a little bit about yourself. You both worked in tech and were a comedian, or have a comedy background. So what made you launch this, the other comedy company? How does it work? Give me the spiel,
Yeah,
elevator
no, for
pitch.
sure. Honestly, it's really great to be here. I love that your podcast is called Forbidden Conversations. I feel like this is what comedians have with each other all the time. Like we're always talking about things we're not supposed to be talking about. And there's something about like so sacred in the comedy green room. Like no normies allowed because we're going to be talking about shit that's going to get us in trouble if we were at work. So this is really nice that we get to be here today. And yeah, during the pandemic, I actually got the job at Shopify so I could take it on the road with me. I was traveling, performing in clubs, doing comedy, and I was like, oh, I should probably get a work from home job so I could just take a job with me while I'm chasing my dream and doing my thing, not knowing I got like a pandemic proof position and like the whole world shut down and I just suddenly had a job and I was like, huh, I'm typically not a lucky guy, so this worked out really well for me, you know. And I started in the mailroom at Shopify doing the customer service thing, helping merchants out, doing emails, phone calls, a bit of tech support, a bit of business coaching. They like people that know how to talk, so they hire a lot of Starbucks baristas and entertainers and entrepreneurs. Now they just have AI, but back in the day when they dealt with humans, like I was one of those humans that got to come through. And one of the cool things in tech companies is they kind of exist as a jungle gym where you get to kind of swing and slide your way through the company. Don't necessarily need education, but you need the gumption to go forward and to be a self learner and resourceful. And that is the way of the comedian. So I actually worked my way up to the learning and development team that's with the Shopify Fulfillment Network, which was their attempt to compete with Amazon Fulfillment. Spoiler alert, they failed. And and like so I was laid off with a couple hundred of my closest friends and that happened on May 4th. You know, I remember like I tweeted that day, May the 4th go fuck itself because it wasn't a good day for me, you know? And but like I already knew when I was at Shopify that I was going to find a bridge towards comedy and learning and development because I was heavily involved in building L&D programs. So onboarding programs for sales, customer service, doing town halls and things that integrate with the culture and with senior leadership teams and all that kind of good stuff. And one of the things that really ingratiated me to this culture was my comedy background. I was surrounded by people with degrees that didn't know how to talk to humans. And that was a really interesting dynamic, you know, people with bachelors and masters and some of the smartest people I've ever met in my life. But they didn't know how to have a difficult conversation. They didn't know how to acknowledge when they were in the wrong or rebuild trust when it was broken. So naturally, this became stuff that I was embedding into onboarding and training. And it was something that I was using active engagement strategies that I know from the world of comedy to be able to bring people's guards down and to open them up to a different experience. So I was already kind of being a little experimental, not too far outside of the box. But when I got, when I got the axe and I was told I no longer had a job, I was working virtual like this and I was in my underwear. So first time getting fired in my underwear, that was cool. Didn't
Are you
have
in
that on
your
the bucket
underwear right
list.
now? I don't want to
No,
ask.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not. Nothing but respect for you.
Appreciate it. I appreciate that's the minimum that I expect from my guests.
You're immediately concerned. Wait, is this a thing you do? Like, I'm just meeting you, bro. That's scary. No, I am not in my underwear. I am in jean cutoffs, if that helps you at all. But like, in the comedy world, one of the things in improv is yes and. You say yes to whatever's given to you and you build upon it. Hey, I don't have a job at Shopify anymore, but my goodness, thank you so much for this experience. It was so cool to be around all these dreamers, to be around these people that had big visions for the future, and to see all these different kind of learners, people that were linear, non-linear, data oriented, people oriented. I love that I got so much exposure to this world, and I left with nothing but gratitude. But I had to yes and. So for me, I was like, well, I already kind of had this in the back burner. I already made the account. I had the website. It was stuff I was doing secretly, So I was like, I might as well just announce this. It seems like the universe
Mm,
telling me to do something impulsive, you know. So
yes.
so I was like, let's figure it out. Let's go. And I announced I'm starting this business, the other comedy company. And I just thought that was a funny name. What's your comedy business? Oh, or the other one? That was it. We just went into it. And for me, I wanted to take the two things that I valued the most, which was comedy and learning. Because something to just kind of give you a bit of a framework, like for me personally, is I'm ADHD. So I was grown up in an education system that was not built for me, that wasn't built for my learning style. And I remember I would be getting up in class, talking to other kids. Like I couldn't sit still for the life of me. And I would have teachers going, Clifford, sit down and pay attention to your education. And me, I'm like, why are you interrupting my education?
Mm.
This is my education. I'm learning how to include the person that feels left out and how to ingratiate myself to the bully who, so that way he doesn't pick on me. Like, I'm actually doing the things that we're going to need every single day of our lives. And you're trying to teach me about isosceles triangles? I can't deal with this right now. This is ridiculous. So I realized that, like, not just myself, but the growing neurodivergence and acceptance of neurodivergence is becoming so culturally wide that at some point there's going to be a tipping, right, of that teeter totter. And we just can't rely on linear neurotypical systems to educate people. There's got to be other ways to do it. And
I
so
feel like
this is where
everyone is neurodivergent these days. Maybe we were all like there is no one thing, right? Like,
I think that the system itself was at least where I come from. I don't think it is based on the science of how we are as creatures and communities.
yeah.
Like almost all through nature, you see nature learning through a sense of play. It's how lions teach their cubs to hunt, right? They literally play. And you actually would notice this in the workplace when you're working on a project and you have no idea what you're doing. And it feels like there's high stakes and there is a sense of play and risk. You see people at their best. You almost see people at their best when things are the hardest. And when things are really comfortable, you see people not knowing what to do with themselves because they're not being challenged and they're not being open to real time, iterative, if I can say that word, learning, where you're literally just learning in increments, these like little small increments in real time. And that's something that for me, when I talk about the classroom being an education, well, that was the comedy stage too, right? Like when
Hmm.
I first went on the comedy stage, I was like, oh, where was this in the curriculum? Because all of a sudden I'm doing a form of learning that's fully interacting with my nervous system, right? So I get to make you laugh. My dopamine is having a party. Let's go, right? If I can't make you laugh, oh no, I didn't make her laugh. Fight or flight kicks in. What am I going to do? Quickly, make her laugh. Fix this, right? And there's this
I'm
weird
a
thing where
comedian's worst nightmare, by the way.
are you? Are you very
I'm
straight faced?
I'm very straight face. I have to
And
I'll do it on purpose. It's not that I don't like the joke. Like I love comedy. I love humor, but I just don't laugh easily, like, or at all almost. So that's my neurodivergence. So like if I go to the
That's so
comedy
funny.
club or something, that's like, but they always pick on me. I always get
I
the
I was about to ask you, do they immediately gravitate
every
towards you
single time, every single
be,
time.
and that's because you are putting them through trauma.
Really? Is that what's going on?
Their fight or flight is kicking in their nervous system. They have a goal to make you laugh. You're the one
Hmm.
that's sticking out that they're not making laugh. It could be 100 people in that room. They only see you because you're
That's
the
really
one
interesting
triggering.
because, yeah,
Yeah,
because I'm not even, I mean, they do it right off the bat. Like, I haven't even had a chance, like, they haven't even had a chance
that's
to really
interesting.
test it out. But it's like every single time, and I
It just
talk
happens
back.
naturally.
So I'm a hackler, I guess. But I never start, right? Like, I finish. So it's always them. They start with me. And then what am I supposed to do? Just sit and take it? So I dish
No.
it. But I think they work off of me pretty well. It's just because I'll give them things. But and this is my ego speaking. But yeah, like every single time I can sit, the first time I went, I was kind of near the front. Okay, I kind of get it. My friends outed me as, you know how a comedian goes, "Oh, is anyone Canadian?" And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
so I'm like, oh, great, thanks, guys. But then it was like every single time, and I could be even in the back or on the side, and it's just, I don't know, they gravitate towards me. It's crazy, and I consider myself at this point to be a professional heckler. Um,
I didn't
they
know I
should
was
be
getting
paying
interviewed by a
me.
heckler today.
That's right. Is that
That's great.
great? It's great. But
No,
see, I'm in this process, I am kind of laughing at times because it's like that's me going off this like very social thing. But yeah, if I'm just listening to a joke, again, I can find somebody hysterically brilliant, but it just doesn't happen for me.
so you and I right now are in a different learning environment than we would be if I was on stage and you're in the audience. It's different social contracts, right? So the social contracts, there's a lot going on for everyone in the room. So the performer is not the only one having this real time, uh, oh, we're getting rewarded with laughter, but also we have fear that maybe the comedian's going to talk to us or, get
Mm,
singled out or something like that. And some people are on first dates. Some people just had an argument in the car on the way there.
mm,
Like people are just getting off work. They have their kids. They're tired. They haven't de escalated yet. They still need two Bud Lights in them to have a good
sure.
time. Right.
Yeah.
And so maybe your energy is just this like, yeah, maybe you're like a magnet to comedians where they're like, oh, like unstoppable force meets a movable object, like, let's go.
That might be, that might be it. That's funny. I feel like we should
But
do
it
an improv on this
absolutely.
podcast. Okay.
But in think about this though, in this podcast, as a host and as a guest, we want to ingratiate ourselves to each other, right? We really want a give and take of reciprocal energy to make this really good for your viewers. Right. So it's really important that you're able to have really good moments, really good interactive conversation, and things that are going to make your viewers not only think about what we're talking about, but all these different conversations that you're having that are goddamn forbidden, right? And so here you are opening the can on it, and you and I have a social contract with each other right now without even saying it that we're going to do the best we can to ingratiate ourselves to one another. And I don't
Hmm.
know, I just met you 5 minutes ago. You know what I mean? Like, well, 14 minutes and 32 seconds ago.
Oh gosh, but who's counting? How quick the time goes. But a joke's on you because this podcast is actually it's a trick podcast. It's meant to see how little time people can spend listening. They get tempted by the forbidden conversation title, they're expecting, and then bam, they're out. So I don't
Yeah.
know. No, hopefully not.
Yeah, well, you know what? Like, I think it's one of those things where you always, it's just like anything, like a set like that a comedian does. You build and build and build, right? So anyone that's a creator, like you're creating a podcast, what's important is the commitment to the craft and the process, not really the outcome. right? Like I'm very much not outcome focused. I'm always learning focused. What did I learn from this experience? What am I going to apply it to the next thing? So for me, the next set, for you, the next episode, right? And this is like what I'm trying to kind of open the door in the conversation is we have been training students and workers to go for good grades and raises and titles, right? Like we've been putting them in this ranking system and not actually just seeing that school never ends. Everything we do is school. And everything we do, we're learning every day. And so it really is about comfort threshold. And how do some of us have a very low threshold for discomfort? Some of us have a very high threshold for discomfort. But let's say you have a very low threshold for discomfort and you're my manager, right? How are we going to
Hmm.
have difficult conversations, especially if you're avoidant, right? Like
Right.
that's not going to work. And at some point, I'm going to lose my job because you couldn't talk to me.
Well, something I wanted to chat with you about is something that you mentioned to me earlier, and that you believe that we live in a very polarized and a very reactive society, which I think hard to disagree with that. And so I'm
Mhm.
curious, like, how do you feel comedy plays into that solution, and how can comedy be our Trojan horse to deal with it, as you might say?
Yeah, so kind of like to set the stage for this, we have to look at things in terms of we are a very interventative society, right? So almost everything we do is based on intervention because that's what you can prove on a spreadsheet, right? We stopped two people from being homeless this year, not we prevented 100 people from becoming homeless, right? So almost everything we do because things get allocated for budgets and resources, and because that is happening, it's reactive. It's reactive by the nature of the system. One of the things that we don't talk about, like, so you look at like society being so polarized, our social media, this is a brand new type of technology. We are getting more look into each other's private lives and opinions than ever before. You're seeing families break up over political opinions, right? You're seeing people being very, very polarized. And a
Hmm.
big part of that polarization is a low threshold for discomfort, but a flaw in the system. Everyone's reacting to one another, right? We're not preventatively learning the skills to have these conversations. So if you don't like certain things happening in politics, what we really need to be talking about is the underlying thing that creates the bad game in politics. So life itself is full of good games and bad games. So when we are creating something that's going to help other people learn, we're doing a good game, right? When we're playing with each other, it's a good game, right? Like there's a lot of like relationships, pursuing your dream, raising children. These are great games, right?
Hmm.
But like you put politics into their game, right? So you have people that don't like Donald Trump, but shouldn't you be more mad at the thing that makes Donald Trump's the Trump machine, the machine that
Hmm.
spits out people that play this game, right? Like he's just one player in a game, and that's how he has to play it. Like I'm not justifying anything, but I'm saying we just have to admit that's the game itself is flawed. It's a lose lose. And this actually, there's a Star Trek episode. This is going to get a little nerdy, but there was an episode where Captain Kirk was playing something called the Kobayashi Maru, which was a game of this abandoned ship, and it was a lose lose scenario. And what he learned in that lose lose scenario was in order to win a lose lose game, you have to change the rules. Okay. So that's what we have to look at. We are in a lose lose game when we are in a reactive culture. When we react to each other in real time, we are constantly we're dividing our relationships, we are isolating our communities, we are putting more and more people onto the fringes. There is a rise in divorce, there is a rise in single parents, there is a rise in fentanyl usage, right? There's a rise in drug addiction and crime rates. Like you look at these things, it's because people are getting pushed. But when you push people, like all these people that can get into drugs, go to prison, all these things, guess what else they can do? Become comedians. Almost every comedian I know is some degenerate, just like myself. I was raised in a blue collar town. I was
Hmm.
raised in GM City, Oshawa, Ontario. We had two GMs, little mini Detroit right here in Canada, right? So I
Hmm.
was raised around, this kind of like really roughneck culture, and what it taught me was that I wasn't allowed to chase my dreams and I wasn't going to get the education that I needed and stuff. But when I found an outlet, which was drama that led to comedy, that led to music, that led to writing, that led to business building, and I became this multi hyphenate person, I actually avoided going into that pathway. I didn't end up on the fringes. I ended up self creating a life for me. I didn't get upset that I got fired. I looked forward to building the next thing. I was going to lean into something that I cared and created about. And what this really stems down to is because whether it was active or not, my mother did a really good job in building up my self esteem very young,
Mm.
right? So my self esteem has always been very in place. And I had this sense of self belief that I can do things bigger than myself, that I can do hard things, that I can overcome what's in front of me, that if people don't agree with me, that's okay. I didn't need to be liked by everybody. And so we have this very
That's rare
reactive.
for a comedian, I must say.
Well, I think it's par for the course. I think a lot of comedians, I feel like about 10 years in is when they start going to therapy finally.
They
You know, like,
almost every comedian I've met has needed therapy. Like,
yeah.
I think that's how, but it makes sort of sense because I think people tend to be, I mean, people deal with difficult things in different ways, right? And so
Yeah.
I think comedians are people who deal with difficult things in life through finding comedy in them, and I think so. Pain, people who've experienced a lot of pain do tend to gravitate towards comedy. Of course, people who've experienced pain might, not gravitate towards comedy at all, but you will find a lot of those kinds of people, I think, in there. And I found through my interactions, there were definitely a lot where they were like, definitely wanted to be liked. And I think you were
Of
kind of right
course.
with the hackler thing. Even though I haven't quite considered it, but I remember really noticing that because when I went backstage, like first time that has sort of happened was at the Comedy Store in LA, and I went. Finally, kind of got tired of every comedian ganging up on me because by everyone was just drunk at a certain point and they were just cursing at me. So it wasn't even like humor.
Oh no.
I was getting called the C word and so on. So I was like, okay, whatever. And so I go
Oh
out,
man.
and all the comedians from the previous rounds were out there smoking. And then they were like, started talking to me, and they were all like, you could tell then, oh, okay, they want you to like them, and that was really what's underlying that. It was kind of surprising to experience that, but there is a lot of that, and I have a lot of empathy for that. I think, but I mean, there are definitely some well-adjusted comedians as well, so I don't want to make everyone.
Well, I will say they are the minority, but I think as the longer you're in the game, you do become more well adjusted over time, just a
Mm,
byproduct of growth in general. Like a lot of people, especially if they're in an art form that's challenging themselves, you'll see the comedians that never challenge themselves on stage most likely don't challenge themselves off stage. But the ones that do take risks on stage are probably looking in the mirror off stage as well. But like to
mm-hmm,
go back to what we're talking about, when you're seeing these comedians and like, yeah, maybe you're feeling this people pleasing need for attention, that is coming from the fact because we have a myth of what an adult is. We made that up. You're looking at a child that's just bigger and knows how to drive, right? Like that's all you're looking at, but you're still looking at a child that has unmet needs, that has trauma, that has a life that's uniquely theirs, an experience, a learning experience that was uniquely theirs. And so, because we have such a reactive society that keeps people dropping off onto the fringes, like we have a grade system where if you don't know something by grade four, you don't get to go back to grade one and learn it. Now you're
mm,
behind, right?
mm-hmm.
And so like, and all of a sudden you're othered, you're outcast, and this has social consequences. And you have to go back even further in time to when we were cave people. If I came up to your cave and you didn't know me, I better get you to like me fast, or I'm going to get clubbed. You know what I mean? You're going to see me as a threat, right? Like, how am I going to do that? Like, there is, if we lose all of this electrical grid today, what do we have? We're going to have communities. We're going to have to work with each other, and we're going to have to rely on people we don't know.
And
So what
people
does
who have
that look?
skills, which is not that many, right?
Yeah, we're gonna have to start from scratch on that
We're
one.
doomed. We're kind of doomed.
This is how you crack an egg.
That's
Like,
right.
and so just to kind of like really kind of full-fledged it out for you, when we're talking about what would preventative learning look like, one of the things I started just doing corporate training, right? So I thought this was good for teamwork. I thought it was good. I thought, hey, the tech companies are really innovative, they'd be into this. Well, they ended up laying off a lot of people, actually don't want to take accountability for things, and did not were not that into this. The people
Mm.
that were into this were ma and pa mid-sized companies that really wanted their sales team to feel like a good team with each other,
Oh,
right?
that's
And
interesting. Yeah.
they're selling conveying products and nuts and screws, you know what I mean? Like, and like literally like people more in those blue collar trades were the ones that I were getting as corporate clients. But then I started getting the same feedback over and over and over again. This was awesome. We learned a lot. We had this surprising result or this surprising result, but I wish my kid could do this. I wish my daughter of 13 who's really struggling, feeling that she's not as pretty as the other girls, my son who has a stutter, all this stuff that
Mm.
might give us some sort of lower self-esteem, right? Like, so what ended up happening, I kept hearing over and over again about parents just, oh man, I wish my kid knew how to have these conversations in real time. There's so much that my son or my daughter is afraid, they don't speak up for themselves, and they doormat to their friends, or their friend, they pick the wrong friend groups because they feel like that will make me more popular over, well, I actually am really value aligned with these people, right? And so it got me thinking I should start having conversations with people who talk to kids. So I did a conference with 80 teachers in my local county, and I did a keynote for them talking about this education, asking them about their experience post COVID. I asked them what they're seeing, and what they were seeing was a higher influx of fear earlier in age. So kids are going as far to say they were afraid of the wind because that's where COVID lives.
Oh, wow.
So you have to understand, we're in a generation that was isolated, that had masks on their face. Some kids masks on their face their first year of school, so they didn't even see other lips moving, right? Like there's been this weird disconnect with the digital. We have our phones parenting our children, right? We aren't connected like we used to be. And now you're seeing these kids growing up, they have brain rot, they're saying sus and sigma all the time, but do they actually have a personal opinion? Like it's really interesting, and you're
Oh,
seeing
they
an
do.
increase. Yeah, they do. Of course they do. And they have an identity and they have a self, but they are hiding behind the waves of what's going to make us fit in. And so I asked them, what are those ages, those prime ages that really affect self-esteem? And they told me, we kind of deduced that it was down to between grades 6 to 9, really. Those pre self-conscious years, right? Where you're really like not in the high school yet, but like that's kind of the time to really catch kids. And it got me
Mm.
thinking. I was like, I can't think of the best team building I've ever had, the best corporate conference I've ever gone to, but I can think about what someone said to me when I was in grade 7. My friend Alex came up to me on the playground and said, Clifford, you're really funny. You should show that to other people. And he changed my entire life.
Oh, wow.
He
Okay.
changed the direction of my life that day, because I've not only found a way to connect to people, and it wasn't just about getting attention, it was about me. I was able to actually do something for them too. I saw that I can make other people happy. I was making kids laugh who I knew had alcoholic abusive parents. And so I knew that like a lot of kids from broken homes, they had to go back to that. And I was making them laugh before that happened and after. And there was something really valuable in that. And it gave me a real sense of, I have a reason to be here. It's as simple as that. If we believe that we have a reason to be here, that we can contribute, that we can have a purpose, We are going to see the risks in life as more worth it. We're going to lean into discomfort because we want to see that purpose as actualized as humanly possible. And if we were a society that could go back to when everyone was 9, what would those conversations look like? I feel like all of us would have very different conversations with our 9-year-old selves. Maybe we would tell them, hey, you're enough as you are. You actually don't need to prove yourself to any teacher or boss or your parents. You're really creative and interesting. You're curious. Like you are going to impact so many people in positive ways, and you should be really proud of yourself, right? Like, and maybe that would even exponentially compound your impact, right? Like, even the most well-adjusted people would benefit from that conversation.
Mhm.
So, like, I look at that, and I am personally disturbed by the society that we live in. Now, I'm not going to go on Twitter and reactively bark about it because that's not going to get anything done. But I'm so glad that people like you are willing to have these conversations because we got to talk about the root issues. We have gotten in the habit of creating enemies out of individuals. I don't like Trump, right? Me Too movement. Let's Me Too this guy. Let's Me Too that person. You're right. People have done bad things, and we don't like what these systems have created. But we have to admit that the political system itself is rooted in reactive corruption, that the Hollywood system was rooted in reactive corruption, right? And it was all these people that were, think about it, like the Weinsteins of the world, Trumps of the world, are they not poster boys for trauma? So when they grow up and they become unaware, right? Like that unaware, we all need masculine and feminine energies. But when you're that unaware masculine, you can be very dangerous, be violent, you lean into aggression, right? And you can hurt people. And this is the kind of stuff that people don't want to talk about. Like the fact that we're all capable of being monsters. And what makes us not monsters is the ability to choose not to be, to admit that you can be and choose not to be.
I have a line that basically I'm evil, but I choose not to be. So
Yeah, that's
because
great.
I do think, I mean, I don't know what's inside of everyone's heads, but I certainly can have dark thoughts or impulses. But I've always tried to choose to never act on anything. To maybe I don't like someone and I want to do something negative to them. It's like, okay, but that's not. I go through the process. It's the same thing even with something like racism. It's like, okay, I love the Avenue Q song. Everyone's a little bit racist. I don't know if you heard
Oh, I
it.
haven't heard that.
You
No.
listen to that one. I
I'll
don't know
listen
how it'd
to
go
it.
over today, but it was like really great, very popular musical at the time. And everyone's a little racist. It's like Avenue Q's because, in New York, you have Avenue A stands for alive, B for barely, C for catatonic, D, I guess you'd be dead.
Oh.
That's the New York legend, anyways. It's not really named for that, but Avenue Q is like all the way. So all the characters in the musical, they're all puppets, by the way, and they live in
Oh, no
like
way.
Avenue Q, which is like, really far, so way beyond dead. They're very kind of disadvantaged, disenfranchised,
Huh.
poor, have all sorts of issues. And it was great because it was all puppets. And there's a song, everyone's a little bit racist. And it's true. I mean, I think we have prejudices, maybe not racist, but like prejudiced because of the environments that we grow up in. I mean, you can't. And I think it's something a lot of times people will deny it because they're like, I'm not racist. But
Of course.
ultimately, everyone has a little bit. And I think it's much more important to acknowledge that in ourselves and then work on it. So, you might
Yeah.
have a thought that you want to like utter, and you're like, okay, maybe that's wrong. That's not a very nice thing for me to think because, I'm judging a whole group by, I'm stereotyping, whatever that process for you is. And then you don't say it because you gone through. And I think that choice of how you treat people, and you're like, oh, maybe I'm a little biased towards a category of people. Like, okay, I'm aware of that. Now, how do I make sure that I don't let that bias affect how I treat people? I think that's far more important than somebody having that thought. And yeah, so everyone's a little bit racist.
Well, I absolutely love that. And like, not like, I really want to build on what you're saying right now, because so let's hold on to that for a second, right? Like, okay, if everyone's a little bit racist, if everyone's biased to some degree, and we know that these come from stories that were told around us from our surroundings, these are stories that we have to unlearn, right? These are
Hmm.
things that we have to experience. But the threshold for discomfort, now you've crossed the barrier. You can tell yourself, hey, maybe I'm a little bit biased towards men because of my experience with this man, or whatever
Yeah.
it may be, right? That's fair. That's fair. But some people can't do that. So now the threshold's lower, right? So what's that threshold? Why can't someone admit it? Well, the person that can't admit it out loud, what's that? Maybe it comes from shame, right? Maybe there's like, oh, I feel ashamed that I don't
Mm.
like men because of this. Now, shame is a killer, because shame tells you I am wrong, like I am bad. Where guilt tells you I did something bad and immediately lets you have accountability. Accountability is a beautiful thing. Guilt is completely healthy. Shame
Oh wow, I have
isn't
a ton of
healthy at
guilt
all.
all the time. So that's I guess that's
Good,
good. Jews and
good.
Catholics.
Oh, yeah, I was raised religious as well. Like, I got expelled from Bible college for streaking, so I'm with you. But like, yeah, so there's a threshold where like, okay, now you need someone to address their shame. We don't teach this in schools. How do people address shame? Maybe we make a game about it. Maybe we make it so silly and ridiculous of things that would be shameful. We play a shame game of like, oh, why I feel so guilty or feel so shameful for wearing a shirt with a children's TV station on it. Oh my gosh, does that mean I'm secretly on the Epstein list? Why would I do this? What kind of,
Right.
right? I don't know. I'm telling them, don't put it out there. I'm
Okay.
just kidding.
Well,
But like, yeah,
nobody's getting that list anyways, it looks like so.
the stories we tell ourselves privately, they are that absurd, right? They can be that absurd, and we don't live in a society where we have permission to face our shame, right? Or to move away from it into guilt. And because if you say I did something wrong, hey, I took my side piece to a Coldplay concert, okay, cool, you're resigning on Saturday. Right. Right. So we're going to have immediate consequences for facing this. And I'm not even justifying anyone doing anything wrong. That's not what this conversation is about. This conversation is about the fact that we're going to do wrong things. And it's just inevitable. And I'm not justifying it on a scale. I'm not putting any sort of grade points of this being worse than that. I'm talking about the fact that if we don't go to the underlying root system of, hey, we're not even allowed to talk about shame, so how can we have these conversations? So if you don't mind, I'm going to try to do this as tactfully as possible. I want to lean into taboo for a second, because this
Hmm.
is forbidden conversations,
Right.
and taboo is very much around the conversations that we don't have, right? So for example, you have corporate cultures really pushing DEI initiatives. They sound really good, right? You want to include people. You want people to feel comfortable and psychologically safe in their environments. And but you see a lot of these bigger companies, and they kind of feel like a caramel frappuccino. You see all the white rising to the top, right?
Mm.
And so you're like, huh, you're saying this, but I'm not seeing this. But what? And then there's, oh, when the white at the top is alone, maybe they're talking about meritocracy. Maybe they're having a conversation of, why should someone of a different color that's not as good at this job get my job? And no one's having it out loud, because that's going to make people feel psychologically unsafe, right? And how do we get to taboo? So if we're getting to the point where there's truth that we're never saying to each other, but does that just mean we're in a play? We're in theater?
Mm.
Like, what is this? Because you're saying DEI, but these same, like, let's say like me, I come up and I'm talking about a DEI initiative. I'm presenting it to the entire company. Okay, well after work I'm watching pornography. And what kind of pornography am I watching? Is it belittling? Is it aggressive? Right? Is
Okay.
it
I was like, is
misogynistic?
it diverse?
Is it diverse? Yeah,
That
but
was
no,
my
that's
first
funny.
thought, but
That's a good joke. That's funny, right? But like,
thanks.
but But you got to think about that, right? You're like, so how honest am I really being here? Do I even, do I fucking buy what I'm saying? Right? Like, and I know that's really uncomfortable to talk about, that maybe people are just being that outright hypocritical. But it's
Hmm.
not that they are, it's that we're forcing all of us to be,
Well, it's not
right?
just that. I mean, it's funny. I just had a conversation with someone about specifically about DEI. Somebody works in that area.
Okay, cool.
I think a lot of the issues around that too, because some things are the lack of conversation that's open and good faith around it, I think, has created a lot of the issues around it. There are certain things that I think people are that are legitimate for people to have grievances about, and other things not. And there is that polarized view of it. It's like it's either all bad or it's all good, and no in between. And the problem is, like, that either one group or the other group is going to jump all over you. So if I go and say, and I'll be curious as to the reactions for the podcast about DI, because like some people are going to be like, "How dare you, defend or talk in any way that's positive about DI," and other people will go, "Oh, you question certain things, right?" And so as a result, we live in a society where essentially we can't refine our systems properly because we can't talk to each other properly. And it's, by the way, it's okay for when you talk to another person to be wrong or
Yeah.
misguided or say something off, because that's how you correct. And from that, from someone saying, "Catherine, you know what, you got this a little bit wrong. Think about it this way." I can correct him like, "Oh, yeah, you're right. Oh, but you know this." And then we go back and forth, and that's how we refine these systems. But that mechanism by which we refine through conversation and dialogue, I think, is quite, because of all that polarization and because of the fear and the shame that's sort of been suppressed. Like, I wrote a book about, how people do get targeted and canceled
Mm.
for things that they say. Um, and in all these cases that I specifically profiled, they weren't like egregious things. It was like an over the top reaction. But what it does, it has this chilling effect, the silencing effect, where we can't have these like discourses. And the people I included in the book, they were like, I don't necessarily agree with all of them myself, right?
Yeah.
It's just that I know that they were coming at it through trying to figure things out, having a process, and suddenly, their lives get destroyed. That's not that's not, I think, a good thing for society, and it's not good for invention or innovation either. So yeah, I mean,
Well, you
that's where
said the
we're at.
word, you said the word, you said it again, reaction, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
very reactive system. And when it comes to DEI specifically, people are getting caught up in the D and the E. Let's just talk about the I. So what is it for us to just feel included, right? So I've talked about all these systems that push us to the fringes, and then we're not included, right? We're outliered. So if we can figure out the I, the rest I think comes into place naturally. But I don't think we can have the I if we can't address the taboo without being reactive.
Yeah.
We can't be so hard pressed of someone saying or doing the wrong thing, because it's just a matter of time before the witch trial moves to you. It's just, you know what I mean, like, okay, we're mad at you now we're going to be mad at you. And like, I would rather an open conversation of how this makes people feel. What do we think about this? Why do we agree or disagree? What else is this bringing up for us? Is there a psychologically safe way for us to have this conversation? Now, I don't know if there is, but I wonder if we developed high trust batteries with one another because we were playing more, because we had to take more risks, and we had to kind of learn how to ingratiate ourselves. Like, okay, Cliff's bringing up something I really disagree with, but I know Clifford. I know
Mm.
Clifford. I know that he doesn't have bad intentions. I can assume positive intent of him here
That's
because
the big thing. That's the big
Yeah.
thing here because I notice, like, in conversation in my real life, I've never had an issue because I think people, even when people disagree with me, I think they know that they understand who I am. They know I'm coming from a good place. And so it doesn't trigger them in a way, in a reactive way. We'll use that word again. And then, in say social media world, which is all about reactivity, yeah, I trigger even if I say the mildest thing, that they'll project everything they can to my avatar. They build this whole persona in their heads, and it's always bad faith. So we see a lot of that as a result. But with comedy, do you find that what is it about comedy that you think allows? Because I almost feel like when if you can get somebody to laugh or somebody to laugh at themselves, ideally, it's just they can't be upset. It's like, so certain truths and certain funny bones, I don't know, you hit them and
Yeah.
it's like you can kind of say anything can get away with anything. How do you, as a comedian, find that role of humor in that way? And also, like, feel how do you push to that without having that fear of offending and holding back?
Yeah. So right before I'm going to go into that, I just want to address one thing of what you just said, about 'cause you really address like the bias, the people, they see your avatar, right? They come up with a story in their heads. Something I actually intentionally did before this interview was not look you up.
Hmm.
I was very intentional about it. I didn't want to know who you project to be. I wasn't interested. I didn't listen to a single episode. I didn't want to know the way you talked. I wanted to meet you for myself and come to my own conclusions in real time. Right. And this is something that we don't really afford ourselves to do. So, to go into your question, when I've performed stand up comedy, what you have to understand is a lot of those people, other comedians in the green room, I don't like them. Like, some of them are assholes and
Yes.
mean, right? And some of them, like, are just full of themselves or think they're hot shit when they're not. Or like myself, I had someone come to me, sit me down, and said, Clifford, I really wrote you off because you used to come in the room as if you owned it, and I really hated you for that because I didn't think that you followed through with that bravado. And then I
Mm.
got to tell him in real time, I was so insecure. I was so afraid of not being that guy that I really did project this attention whore energy. And I can see how you came to that conclusion of me. And I'm really glad that you got the courage to talk to me today and tell me that you actually see that you were wrong about that assumption, just like I was wrong to be projecting that energy. And I'm glad that we're both growing to talk about this. And one of the things that I love about comedians is I don't need to like them. I don't need to like these people to work with them, to be with them, to enjoy their company, even. I love the Jimmy Carr line. We're all out for ourselves, but we're in this together.
Hmm.
That's what he says about comedians, but maybe that's everything. Maybe we are all out for ourselves, but maybe we are all in this together. When I see someone, listen, maybe you're full of yourself, or maybe you're being a dick right now, but I also know you're on a growth curve, and maybe you're here, and I know you'll go up. I know things will change. I know the opinion you have today won't be the opinion you have 2 years from now. There's a lot of comedians out there that I thought we would just be lifelong adversaries. You know what I mean? And some of them are my closest friends. I'll even go as far to tell you one quick story here of a comedian who hit on my ex-wife right after our divorce. And he actually grabbed a calendar appointment with me, gave me a really heartfelt apology explaining the situation. I already knew, I saw the screenshots,
Mm.
bro, right? But we had that conversation out loud. We are used to discomfort. So, hey, let's lean into this. Let's talk about it. And now we're talking about going on tour with each other again.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. Interesting. because people do make their mistakes. Am I going to hold this over his head his entire life, or am I going to
Yes.
say, "Oh, you
No,
are
never mind. That's
you,
bullshit.
you're so petty," but
I'm kidding.
but I can't because I'm a leader in this movement of we're going to give people second chances. We're going to learn through our mistakes. We're not going to not everything is a life sentence, and we're not going to do that to people. So I'm gonna die on that hill. I have to because I'm not fighting for that guy. I'm fighting for him when he was 9,
Mm.
right? So that's what we're on about here, right? So like when I see all these people that are clashing, what connects us is we are a tribe. We are in comedy because no one goes to an open mic because they're fucking healthy. Oh, everything's doing good. I have a great attachment style. Like I'm so therapy now. I've done so much DBT. I should take up stand-up
But
comedy.
wait, what happens when a comedian has gone through therapy, has healed their wounds? Like, do they become less funny?
That doesn't make them less angry. So you have to understand a lot of comedy, the underlying, because anger is
Mm.
a secondary emotion, is anger. What you see here, that friend I told you about, Alex, who told me, you're really funny, you should show that to people. I'll tell you something else that he said at a party years later in our 20s. This is back in the day when I used to drink, and that was part of the problem too. I'm a sober guy now.
Mm.
But when I used to drink, I was out there being life of the party, and he was off to the wall being just he's more introverted doing his own thing. He was talking to someone. It's like, oh man, it must be awesome being best friends with Clifford. This guy is so funny. And Alex, who is the funniest person that I know, and he's not a comedian. He's a delivery driver, and he's the
Mm.
funniest guy I know on earth. And
Mm.
I love him so much. And he goes, you know what? Clifford is the funniest guy I know, but it's because he's the angriest guy I know. And it's something that we really connected is like when I'm talking about these things, I'm talking about, yeah, let's lean into discomfort through these joy channels. Let's open ourselves up to being a little brave and courageous and be okay to fail. One of the improv rules, there are no mistakes. Let's put us into situations where there are none, right? And like I really believe in that, but it's coming from a place that's so angry that kids are raised in homes with abuse. That's so angry that our education systems are failing us like no tomorrow. That our political systems are reactive, that police only show up in my neighborhood to take my body off the lawn, right? So like I'm very realistic about the class divides, about how unbelievably unfair this is for people, and I'm going to fight this with comedy. I'm going to go and make people laugh. It is the greatest resistance. The devil wants to fuck you up, you laugh in his face, right? Like and so like I know that I'm not your typical thought leader, right? I'm not the person that you see in these realms because you're not going to see me on a TED Talk. People don't know how to take this. Or maybe you will. Maybe times will
Maybe you
change,
will.
right? Maybe you will. But at the moment, you don't. And the reason why is because, like, I really, really believe in feeling out loud. A part of the question you just asked me was about are you worried about offending people or, how people will perceive you? I believe I have the right to fail. I believe I have the right to fuck up a joke, to step on a punchline, to say a word the wrong way, to not be funny. I had a joke I just dropped a special on YouTube. It's called Jokebox Hero. If anyone wants to check it out, quick plug. But like there's a joke in that where I talked about um like I was always I married my first girlfriend. So I never experienced a dating phase. I was dating for the first time. I talked about being ghosted by an orphan, and the punchline was just like her parents ghosted her. It's a rough look at your face. Look at that. You
I
had
liked
a
it though. It
physical
was
reaction
physical,
though.
physical reaction,
Physical.
but I liked it. Yeah.
Good though. So you had a physical reaction, and so did 300 people. They went like, "Ooh," like they didn't like it. And I told them in real time, "Good. You don't deserve to be happy all the time. Let's all feel that." And so like I want that in a comedy special? Is that showcasing me as Mr. Funny Guy? Maybe not, but at least it's showing you something fucking real. At least it's showing you something not polished. And maybe that's part of the problem too. How presentational are we? We curate our social feeds, we curate our Pinterest boards, we curate our work performance, our tool stack. You know, we curate our friend circle, we curate our appearance. At what point are we fucking real when we stop being the characters and realize we're the fucking actors? Sorry, I'm getting a little, giving you a pulpit right now. Let's go, right? At what point do we break through this and go, God damn, we're being phonies, and have that conversation? That I believe in the right. I believe the right to be real. And that might mean it's going to be uncomfortable and I'm going to be wrong and I might not be as funny as I wanted to be. And I have that human right. And I am enough with or without your validation. I don't need you to validate me to know I'm funny. Because guess what? On or off the stage, I make people laugh every single day of my life. And I'm at the grocery store making people laugh, right? I'm at the doctor's making people laugh. And there's not a day that's gone by that I haven't lived with some semblance of trauma, but I've also never not laughed. And so for me, I believe in this.
You know what's
Sorry.
interesting is laughter is a form of validation, obviously, to comedians. It's like a
Of
comedian
course.
almost can't exist without validation.
It's currency, yeah. It puts us in a weird catch 22, right? Where you have to not care about the thing you need.
Yeah, which is like almost impossible. Like an artist can paint and a painter can paint and sit and maybe not even show their work, but they're still creating their art. But comedy is so dependent on some sort of reaction, right? Some sort of audience.
And you know what the best thing for laughter is?
What?
Silence. You get a lot of silence. When that laughter breaks through, it's heavier. It hits harder, right? Silence is one of the greatest tools in comedy. Public speaking is public listening, right? And when you can slow it down and bring that pace, right? And you learn how to bring everyone in, silence tells you I'm here. I'm listening to you. I'm not talking over you. I'm not looking at my phone. It's uncomfortable, but then when you break through it, and especially with laughter, there's no greater feeling. It's euphoric, and it's almost like there's a little bit of power play in that. When are you going to release me? Come on. I'm in this tension with you, you know? And like, I think that's why I love the craft. It's why some of the greatest storytellers on earth, like watch Ali Sadiq, he's very comfortable with silence. And when he gets those big laughs, boy, does he get them. And it's beautiful, And I can't help but look at comedy and say, I'm looking at something very, very beautiful. It's underestimated. People, we're still the class clowns. We're still not considered serious workers. In Canada, comedy's not even considered an art form. It's not funded by the federal government like music or painting, right? And so, like, I represent an organization called Canadian Association of Stand-Up Sketch and Improv Comedians, where we're saying we're here, we exist, our work matters. Making people laugh matters, but more importantly, having the courage to try to make people laugh matters. Having the courage to bomb matters, right? You can't have the laughter without the bombing. So we're talking about that silence being important. I need to know what the not laughter sounds like just as much as the laughter. And I remember I opened up years ago for a comedian in Canada named Jerry D. He was on Last Comic Standing, got very far. He's so funny. And he saw me at a roast where I got 1,000-person standing ovation for the one and only time in my entire career. I've been at this for 16 years. And he was like, man, you're so funny. That was so well written. I got to get you to open for me in front of 2,000 people in Hamilton, Ontario. And then that night, I learned what 2,000 people sound like silent because I bombed harder than I've ever bombed before. And it felt like a guillotine. Not only that, his audience is mostly teachers. And I was raised, I'm ADHD. So it's an ADHD kid's nightmare having all these teachers not approve of me. And the next day, I was back on stage in a basement, Polish hall basement, making 100 people laugh their asses off. Because the most important part of that experience was I got back up and I did it again. And I think a lot of us fear that. A lot of us think we're going to fail. We're not going to get back up. I'm going to lose this job. I made this mistake. I can't show my face again. And it's like, no, you need the courage to show your face again. You need the courage to be disliked, and you need the courage to learn out loud, because guess what? These people that are judging you, they're going to forget. It's just passing with the news cycle, you know? And it disturbs me that more people aren't angry about this. And I'm actually thinking I'm probably wrong on that. I'm thinking, I think everyone's mad about this, but no one's saying it. Like, you think about it too. Think of someone like, if you're in a relationship and someone that you really love and it didn't work out for some reason or another, right? Maybe it's communication. Maybe it was attachment styles. Maybe it was past trauma. There's so many things to be mad at because you know all the good parts of that person, but the bad parts overrided it, right? And then the story didn't become the story that you guys had in your heads in the future. And it's because it's so hard to be so present. And comedy really does force you to be in the room at that moment where most of us are living with stories that were told to us that we have to unlearn, and an idea of a future with expectations that may or may not be realistic, right? None of it really, the future and the past don't really help us whatsoever. The present is incredibly helpful. So, hey, it didn't work with that last person. Now you're back on the dating market. Cool. What are you going to talk about? Talk about today. What did you do today? Oh, I did a podcast. It was really nice. I got to have a really deep conversation with someone I've never met before, and it felt really connective. And I personally just, I really needed to have that conversation with someone today, and it's cool that it was someone I've never met before. And I think that's really awesome. And I'm going to talk about that today. I'm not going to talk about what happened to me when I was in grade six. Like that's not what I'm talking about today. And I try to tell people, meet people where they're at. Oh, you're the guy that got canceled for this. Okay, yeah. And I've been in therapy since. And now now I'm doing this with my work. And here's what I learned from that mistake. You know what I mean? Like, well, why are we talking about it? And
What's the
it's
biggest No, I'm curious, like, what's the biggest lesson that comedy has taught you? Doing comedy has taught you?
the biggest lesson that I think comedy has taught me is that it's an act of courage to love yourself so much that you're willing to be disliked. Because when you love yourself to a degree that you're willing to learn and fail in front of others, you're giving them permission to do the same. It's one of the greatest gifts we can give each other is the gift to love yourself. If you love yourself first, the amount of love you're going to pour out into the world is incredible. And I hate to be so hippy dippy about this, but if we're talking about good games and bad games, then we got to be talking about love, acceptance, and understanding, right? We got to be talking about, we talk about resistance. I talk about laughter as resistance. And I look at Mr. Rogers and I think that guy should be in the punk rock museum in
Mm.
Nevada, because in the time of dopamine cartoons, he slowed it down. He talked to children's inner worlds, right? He let them see who they were. And he talked about divorce, death, disability. You know what I mean? Like, this guy was absolutely punk rock. He shared a pool with a black man when they weren't allowed in the public pools together. He was absolutely a creature of resistance while having a soft masculinity, a really well balance of both femininity and masculinity, right? Like, he came to the moment. He was religious without being judgmental. There's a lot of that's what I see in comedy. I see comedians being outrageous, but I also see them
Mm.
being incredibly loving and accepting and being with people they don't agree with and giving them the right to do that and to be themselves. And when you give someone permission to be themselves, I can't imagine a greater gift than that. And so to me, the greatest act of comedy is learning that this is the greatest gift of love I can give another person is the permission to be themselves, who they are right now today.
I like
That's my
that.
answer to that. Yeah.
I like that. I was gonna leave a very long silence and make it awkward because that would be kind of funny. But then we'd probably fill it. People are very uncomfortable with silences.
I will go 2 more hours. Yeah, and people are uncomfortable with silences. That's right.
It's like a who breaks first. Great.
I knew it was gonna
Well,
be you.
yeah, I could have. Yeah, well, because I
I was
figured you're gonna. I figured you were probably more stubborn than me.
I was about to do the Mr. Bean thing where I was gonna just sip really slowly and then bring out this cup and sip really slowly and just keep drinking while you try to hold it.
Fine. Um, we're gonna have to do. Okay, well, let's do a little skit. How would you? We'll do a little improv. I don't know. I don't usually do that on the podcast, but I figure that
Oh, that's
seems
fun. Yeah,
spontaneous.
that's a fun situation. So, like, okay, so I got a question for you. When it comes to interpersonal skill sets, social skills, and that kind of stuff, what's something that you struggle with? You seem very confident. You seem easily approachable. What are some things that you think
I
you struggle
have
with?
mad anxiety when I am in an unfamiliar situation with people, and I think everyone's silently judging me
Okay, so in like social circles, like at a party kind of thing.
at a party. Like I'm better if like I have control over it. Like I know what I'm doing here. If I don't know what I'm doing here, I like it. It's miserable for me.
Well, can I ask you what the root of that anxiety is?
Probably like everyone else, childhood, not fitting in, feeling judged. Yeah, I was like bullied and stuff. So I don't know if that's like um I don't know the exact reason. I just know that's how I feel.
Yeah, you feel okay, cool. So let's do a storytelling game with each other then. Okay.
Okay.
So we're gonna be at a party, and what we're gonna do is we're just gonna be hanging out. You're gonna come in, right? I'm just gonna be chilling. And can you tell me what are some of the conversation topics that you might be more anxious around?
Um I don't know. Philosophy, um movies, travel. Travel would be a good one.
Okay, perfect. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start. We're just gonna do a scene with each other, right? And this is kind of like where we're gonna actually play. When I say storytelling game, I'm not saying we're telling stories right now. I'm saying we're gonna explore the stories that are in different people's heads. So I'm gonna give you a different role as we're coming in. Okay, I'm gonna set the scene. I'm gonna start by talking, but then I'm gonna pass to you. Okay.
Okay.
And in the past, and the rules are you're going to say yes to it. You can't say no to this. And you're going to build on whatever I give you. And there's no bad answers, there's no mistakes. And we're just going to build with one another. Okay. So when I pass to you, I'm going to start giving you roles, and you're going to explore the story and of what that person would be saying and doing based on your anxiety. So
Okay.
the person telling the story, the host of the party, the person beside you, I'm going to start giving out different roles. I want you to climb into them, and you're going to be being them, but the story that you're making in your head. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to kick off. And yo, everyone, thank you so much for coming to Cliffy's big party. This is the thing, I always loved that like Benjamin Franklin did that like Junto clubs where he had those intelligent conversations with his friends. And that's what I wanted to do tonight. I wanted to have a Junto club night where we were going to talk about all the intelligent philosophical and theological things that are weighing on our heart. And oh my gosh, Catherine, you know how much I love talking about theology. And like, did you know that the Greek word for what made the Bible come into existence was theopneustos? Did you know
Yes.
that?
Yes, I knew that. Yeah, I mean, I knew
And what
that.
and
I
what
think.
and what does Theopneustos mean?
Uh, well, I'm not great at like
Oh, one
defining
second,
things, but
can you guys keep it down? Catherine's gonna let us know what Theopneustos means. She just told us she knows what it is. So sorry, yeah, go ahead. I still want to make sure everyone's paying attention to you.
I, um, well, I think you're probably better at definitions. Like I,
Oh yeah, so you know that it means God breathed, like God breathed it into life, just kind of like our conversation earlier when we're talking about the
yeah,
joy of laughter. That's really, isn't that just breath, right? Isn't that just
yeah.
life? Is that what we're doing? We're like, pause, cool. Okay, now you're going to be the host, and I'm passing it to you, and you're going to talk as the way I was just talking, but through your anxiety. Let's see what that
Um,
looks like.
well, everyone, thanks so much for coming to the party, and yeah, I just wanted to talk to you about this like phenomenon that we have where we just have all these like um in our head, the reality that we see in our head doesn't always match up the reality that we see outside, and then how do we know whose reality is true? So it would be great, could you maybe tell me a little bit about how you feel about the reality, and thanks for coming.
And so we can even take this a step further, right? So maybe if I was in your position and I was climbing into the host, maybe I would flip it on this and be like, hi, everyone. I'm going to really try to guss you up right now by showing you how smart I am. And I'm going to reference Benjamin Franklin. And I'm going to talk about a word that I know you don't know. And then I'm going to put you on the spot to make you feel less than. Whoa, isn't that cool? Because this is fun for me. It's so fun feeling better than other people, right? I can't believe how much Catherine stuttered. Oh man, I'm getting a sense of power over her. Oh, I love it. Right?
Right.
Like maybe that's what our anxiety is telling us, right? What we were just doing, there's different stories that we can
Mm.
tell. Maybe the different people at the party, just to kind of break off from the game at the moment, the different people at the party are looking and going like, oh, it's clear that this guy's putting him above her. Why is he trying to act like he's so smart? He's not really including her. He's not well, he didn't ask her any questions about her or something that she knew. He knew she didn't know that. Oh, but I'm
Mm.
not gonna. Now we climb into that person. Oh, I'm not gonna speak up because the spotlight's not on me. Oh, thank God that guy's talking to her and not me. I don't know what the after sauce is either, but I'm not gonna tell anybody. Right? I feel very safe against this wall, and I'm glad that Catherine's going through the anxiety because I'm feeling anxiety too, but she's feeling more, and that's better. See what I'm saying? Right?
Yeah.
Like there's ways for us to have this conversation, and I'm making up this game as we're talking, but I very much believe that there's when we put things into a construct of a game, and we have a lot of different games that usually require being in physical person with one another and
Mhm.
stuff like that, but it is really important for us to go because when let's say we're a circle of five people and we're doing this and we're going into each other's perspectives and telling that
Yeah.
story, when we tell these stories from different people's perspectives, we start seeing there's so much happening in one room. This isn't just a party of people talking about things they want to talk about. This is a room of five people that want to be liked, that don't want to be embarrassed, that don't want to be made to feel stupid. Some want to be made to feel superior. Okay, why? That's the next part we go to. Why?
And they
Why
all
would I want to
express
feel
it so
superior?
differently. Yeah, why? Yeah.
Don't they?
Yeah.
Right. And maybe you think, oh, I'll tell you why he's superior. He's a white bald man. Look at him. Of course he's superior. Look at how much bravado he just had over me. What a piece of shit. Right? Oh, cool. That's a bias. Let's talk about that. Right? And this is how
Mm.
we do it, right? And so what I actually tell people is yes, we're playing comedy games. It doesn't mean we're gonna be laughing the whole time.
Mm.
Right? Yes, we're playing games. Yes, we're improvising. Yes, we're using these skills and tools. It doesn't mean we're in for a super funny time. It's going to be introspective and it's going to be uncomfortable, but you're safe. You are
I'll
safe
say,
in
like,
this room.
I even felt in that short thing that we did, like a lot of sadness pop up. And I was like, oh, that's
Oh,
more than I expected. And I was like, okay, I can feel a little tears trickling, but suppressed.
really?
Yeah.
Can you tell me why that came up for you? Why were you feeling sad?
I think that like feeling of like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to react to this. This is like, it just brought that up for me, that because of that anxiety, but also because like this person is pressuring me to, like, I obviously knows that I don't know the word, and that's, but he's doing it with a smile. It made me sad.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's very real. I'm sorry I made you feel that way, but I'm glad that you felt it in real time, right?
Mhm.
Like I don't actually mean that. We're
I
playing a
know,
game,
I know.
but I do want to caveat that I'm really happy you got to feel that today, because what you get to do now is go. I had this conversation with Clifford, and he showed me that I really don't like when people make me feel inferior. It actually gets me to the point of tears, and he touched on something that was probably a very young part of, like, I don't know how old that part of you was that felt those tears
Mm.
initially, but I'm going to say they were younger, and I think that part of you that felt that, you get to kind of have this awareness now. Remember, we're talking about our threshold for discomfort. I know that was uncomfortable for you, but you have to see the nutrients of how good this is, that now you have a little bit more awareness. You get to learn something about yourself today, that you have this relationship with inferiority and superiority, with being put on the spot, with feeling left out. And you get to look in that mirror and go, where's that come from? And I guarantee you, it's going to lead you to a growth path of looking at yourself. You've already said you're in the habit of doing that, right? You've already told me that you're evil, but you choose not to be, right? But like, I don't see you as evil. I see you as a child that did not want to be made feel stupid. That's what I saw. I saw a
Or
child
awkward.
with
Yeah.
yeah, tears in their eyes for just being othered, for being pointed out for the wrong reasons, because I did not include you. And that's fucking mean,
Mm.
right? And so, like, but imagine I did that at the beginning of this. We just met. I did not look at anything of your information. I know nothing about you. But I believe very much I established trust with you in this conversation, because we laughed with one another. We discussed some really interesting subjects. I think you're going to really like showing people this episode. I think it's unique and from different than the other episodes you've probably done. And by the time we got to that game, we actually built trust with one another enough to be able to do that. Because I think deep down that even though we just met, I'm not here to make you cry today.
No, I do. Yes, I do know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and these are the tools that I use to ingratiate myself to you, because I've learned them. You know what I mean? I've learned to
Hmm.
develop fast trust with someone, right? Like, and you actually did something really important in this interview. You gave me a lot of space to speak, and I gave that, which gave me a lot of room and evidence to show you who I am. You got to see pretty full body what I give a fuck about. You let me be on that pulpit and be passionate,
Yep.
right? But when you give someone space, and we talk about this in trauma therapy, and we talk about this in relationships, what does it mean to give someone space? Is you gave me permission to be myself, which we've already discussed is one of the greatest acts of love. So I had trust for you too.
I'm glad to hear that. And I think silence is such an interesting thing because silence can be awkward and uncomfortable. You use it as a technique sometimes in interviewing, right? Because to get people to say more than they mean to because they want to fill the gaps.
Yes.
Silence can also be actually something where people are very comfortable. And that is something I remember. I was with a friend of mine traveling in Ireland, and I got this, like, I don't remember what it was, like a fortune cookie type thing. And it said something about like silent, real friendship is when you can walk with a friend in silence and not notice it. And that, I think, was
Mm.
that really stuck with me. And there are friends with whom I can be silent and not notice, not feel awkward, and just be because we allow each other to be. There's nothing to fill. to prove. And then there's silence where it's like, oh my God, I can't deal with it. And I think, and then there's the comedic silence. I guess now I've learned of a third one. And I think that's a really interesting thing about silence.
Yeah, because it's more than, words are just ways that we fumble to try to understand things. But like realistically, wait, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, my Bluetooth just went weird. I'm like, wait, you
I
just went
wasn't sure
silent.
if you were doing an a silence exercise, and
Oh,
I wasn't sure, but
no. But like, yeah, so we use the word silence, but when we think of silence as just a form of holding space, it really is like, I like to think of things in terms of give and take, right? I think everything comes with a certain form of compromise, and that is play, that is dance. Play really is, you know, there's a lot of push and pull. When you're doing tug of war, you can't have both teams win, and there's like, this idea that you're always giving in conversations, you're giving in relationships, there's all these bids for information, and silence is a way that we give someone space to build up that evidence stack of, hey, I can give you more of those bids.
yeah. Well, I really appreciate having the conversation with you today and the play. And how can people find you? What's the best way for them to, find Waldo?
Yes. So if you're looking to book any of our workshops, even virtual seminars or keynote speaking or anything like that, it is www.theothercomedy.co. I'll give you that information as well afterwards to put into the show notes. Myself, I'm cliffordmyers.com, at Clifford Myers on most social media things. And you'll see that I'm constantly putting out comedy, but I'm also constantly putting out conversations like this. And I'm happy to promote any clips of this show as well to make sure that people in my circle of the world get to have more of these forbidden conversations, because I am always going to say thank you to the people willing to talk about the things no one wants to talk about. And you're leaning into discomfort. I think that's super courageous of you. I think it's super cool that you're doing this. And I really thank you for considering me as a guest. And I'm really happy to be here today.
I'm glad to have you. And in terms of leaning into discomfort, obviously that's how you grow. And I have a lot of fears. And by leaning into and just doing them anyways, that's how you evolve as a person and learn. And so discomfort, it has to be part of our fabric. So thanks again. And thanks for the laughs as well.
Awesome.